legacies. Jamie Gangel, this is something I think about a lot. My grandfather fought in the Pacific Theater in World War II, but I think a lot about how the age that I am now will mean I'm one of the last sort of generations to hear these stories directly from someone who I loved, who was there. And it's something that seems to play, or at least it strikes me that it seems to play a significant role in how we think about politics today. It feels in many ways we are forgetting the lessons that these men taught us.
Right, no question. And it's not hyperbole to say it was our finest hour. I mean, kids, the average age was like 21, 22 years old, came from every corner of our country. And imagine if that had not happened, if they had not stormed the beaches or scaled those cliffs. We would be living in a very different world today. And I covered former President Bush 41, for many years, and just hearing the stories from him. He was shot down. He was also in the Pacific. I think the next generations that don't hear those firsthand are losing something.
They are. They need to visit, if they can, go to Normandy. I've had the honor, visit the American cemetery there. Go to Pointe du Hoc, where President Reagan gave one of his most famous speeches. But you see the cliffs that these Rangers scaled. It's impossible. You can go into the pillboxes where Germans had fortified machine gun nests slaughtering Americans as they landed. The heroism, they kept coming. They kept coming. And the heroism is just remarkable, and they saved the world. If you can't do that, at least watch Saving Private Ryan. You're right, we have to keep these. I was a kid, one of my other summer jobs was at Court's hardware store, and Mr. Court's Uncle Buster was on the Bataan Death March. He was our constable forever and a day. And he was a hero. He saved the world. And I was a kid, and he didn't like to talk about it. But we all knew I always called him Uncle Buster saved the world. And we really do owe those guys.
Congressman, one piece of this, one of the realities of having kids, I mean, my grandfather was 18 when he was drafted, right? He turned 18 in the spring of 1944. It meant that every American, and then they were mostly men, obviously. There were, of course, women who served with distinction, but for the draft, it was men. Everyone had the same experience of serving their country and of risking everything, putting everything on the line. And that commonality of experience, of service, is also something missing from our public life today.
Yes, I think it is. And I think the result of, first of all, I mean, the level of uncertainty going into D-Day, right? And what we know of Eisenhower writing the first admission that it had failed, like that was the note that he kept with him because he thought he was going to use it. So such high level of uncertainty, and the decision to send people into harm's way, very difficult. But the men and women, the men on the front line there, their experience and what they brought home brought us unified politics. Right. And what we saw this in Europe, and we saw this in the United States, where we had, and as a result of, or to the collectivization of communist Soviet Union, we saw a century, well, almost a century, of the most unified forces of nation states in human history. Meaning the European and U.S. experience was very unified that we should not have a war like this break out, that we were going to have some normative bounds on politics of what is acceptable. And this was Nazis bad, communists bad, and we were within the confines of this, simplistically. And that made for a world order that was fairly well established. That has eroded, that's changed. The times have changed, obviously. This has been a long time since World War II. But that's what that generation brought us, and that's really the good for economic growth, human flourishing to the whole world as a result of that generation.
And there's a host of reasons why that's all eroded. We don't have time to get into all that now. I think there's a great tragedy that Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan were just not on the same political footing as World War II. We were a divided nation around all of those wars, and I think people just, it just caused greater political division. Yet a lot of young men and women lost their lives in the same way and paid the same price.
Right. Well, and to all of our veterans, all those who've lost, we thank all of them and we remember them, that sacrifice, but especially today on this anniversary of D-Day, it's worth remembering what we as a country were united in fighting for and what those men who stormed those beaches were facing. This was President Eisenhower on that day.
The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world.